Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back here for some more Survivor 50 tribe talk, talking about the Vatu tribe, which I I'm pinch me, right? There's been like 6 Vatu tribes, right? This is like not an original name, but we'll see. This is the tribe we're talking about. 8 players who are coming back for Survivor 50. And I'm talking here with the man who got to talk to them all in Fiji. Give it up for Mike Bloom.
Rob, I know Vatu doing. You talking about the second tribe on Survivor 50.
Mike, but wouldn't it have been so fun, though, if I was on Survivor 50 and we got to do a pregame interview? Wouldn't that have been epic?
Oh, that would have been incredible. Don't think I didn't dream of it, obviously,
Yeah.
in those, beginning months of 2025.
That would have been super fun to do that. And I know with Asia, right, you were on virtual, it was Zoom, but like imagine that, like if we were out there and you wouldn't, but you wouldn't tell me like what everybody said about me, right?
No, of course not. I would absolutely not, or I would tell you the complete opposite.
I feel like the players don't lean on you enough to like, but I think Genevieve did a little bit, but
and there's a little bit of Mike White coming up. Will be like, oh, was Christian before me? What did he say about me? And listen, this may be my first returnee season, but they say my first rodeo dealing with these reality TV contestants.
Yeah,
okay?
I would want to test Mike Bloom's poker face.
I have no poker face. If it's not become abundantly clear from the Christian reaction to the baby last time, listen, you can lie to me, but you cannot ply me for information, okay? This thing's a vault.
Okay. All right. So here we are to talk about the Vatu tribe. They are in red. 8 new interviews that we're going to get to talk about. And of course, great job by you. They've been coming out every day here on RHAP. Still 8 more to go. And then Mike will get back together with myself to talk about it all. We already have previewed the, Sela tribe?
Sela tribe. Did you say this tribe was red?
Are they not red?
They are. Like, there's actually a discrepancy here between is it pink, is it purple? I actually have the Vatu
magenta.
Buff. I mean, it is a darker purple on the buff than I remember seeing out there on
What would you call it?
flag.
Fuchsia?
I mean, this is going to be the dress all over again. And people are remembering 2016 very fondly nowadays, Rob. I feel like that's a throwback.
Yeah, not always remembered so fondly, but Mike, we're going to talk about all of these players and looking forward to this. Another fun group of interviews.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the biggest mix of personalities we have across all 3 tribes. I mean, this is the one that I think a lot of people are predicting to be our quote unquote disaster tribe. They're saying even in this new era, even in tribes of 8, there's still going to be a disaster tribe, but we shall see if that ends up coming to pass. But regardless, if this group does go early and go off into tribal council, it'll be fireworks.
I don't know if we're going to get a disaster tribe in the way that we know it, because I just feel like that I don't know how they're doing this yet, but I just feel like that we are getting a lot of weeks where 2 tribes are going to tribal council. So yes, I guess that they may go pretty often, but I think everybody's going pretty often.
And I think as well, which is something that, we'll certainly get into, the idea of how long are they going to be in these tribes. I think they want to involve as much mixing and mingling as they can, whether it be on journeys, whether it be through swaps. And so as much as we are sort of talking about how this starting group of 8 will kick off the game, we don't know how long they're going to be kicking it before they move on to other players.
Okay. All right. Mike, anything else you want to set up before we dive into talking about these 8 players?
Well, I would say instead of diving in, let's climb on in here, because we got to start with Madame Ladder herself and Angelina.
Angelina. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to go through all 8. We're going to talk about the friend versus foe lineup. And then also, once again, like we did last time, I've got the PowerPoint presentation ready of let's then start to move people around and see if we can figure out how the alliances are going to shape up here in this tribe.
Yeah, it's very exciting, especially I think given this friend or foe game, to be able to really put the pieces together a bit more. Now, granted, just like a lot of preseason content it could all sort of come out in the wash once, their feet actually hit the sand. But I think, especially in these early days, a lot of preconceived notions, I think, are really going to play into the way these people view one another. And I think especially within this group, you have some strong personalities and some strong opinions about said strong personalities that I think might bear out more than some of the other tribes we'll be talking about.
Okay, let's talk about Angelina. So excited to have Angelina come back. Interesting to hear you talk with her about her journey that she's really been on from when she first played to when then she was going to come back. She got contacted to come back for season 40. It wasn't quite the right time, but now here she is. She's got a lot going on. She's got babies. She's got businesses, and she's got some unfinished business in Fiji.
Is that this theme for Survivor 52, babies versus businesses?
Babies versus businesses. Well, Mike, I'm sure, as you well know, that often that having a baby and also taking care of business can also be at odds with one another.
Or babies are doing business.
Well, first of all, you get down to business, and then you have a baby, and then it's like, boy, I better get to business because I need to, as Penner once told me, babies make bread. So you got to find ways to earn money to support your babies.
All of this is segueing away from the most germane question I had after getting to sit down with Angelina. Do you think she was saying 6'7" on purpose or not?
No, I didn't catch that.
She did say 6'7" and like slightly made a gesticulation.
It wasn't a thing yet because I think that really 6'7" really missed the boat on it being June 7th. And so like if 6'7" was a thing, it would have been a big deal on June 7th. And this was like this was what, like that week.
Yeah, precipice. It's basically like we started right before 6'7".
Didn't really take off until like sadly a couple of weeks later. So
well, and also I think that Angelina's children.
Maybe as if Rizgod was doing it, I would say perhaps.
Well, I think even so, the 6'7" demo is not necessarily within the realm of Angelina's children. She said in the interview, right, she has a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old if you count the business. I do not think they haven't yet reached the age of 6 or 7.
She didn't get into what her business is.
Yeah, she got into obviously the Miss Limitless of it all, but I did not necessarily have her give the rundown of the small business. Maybe listen, considering what sprung out of this first Survivor appearance, I can only imagine what's to come out of the second one. We might be seeing her on Shark Tank sooner rather than later.
Oh, like Edna Ma.
Yeah, exactly. Following in her visor-laden footsteps.
Yeah. Okay. So where should we start with Angelina?
It's a very good question. I mean, Angelina was just such a delight to talk to because Rob, she is, as she claims, this new self-aware queen that, listen, she loves the memes, and that's not necessarily going to dull her shine either. In fact, she hopes the sun shines when she has this big summer solstice blowout that she's planning for the island.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see how that goes. I feel like that's like a Mike White confessional waiting to happen when Angelina is planning the summer solstice.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I believe that it would have happened, obviously, in like late June. So it would be almost near the end of the game because we started in like the first couple days of June proper. So it'd be a hell of a Final 3 breakfast celebrated preemptively.
Yeah, but Angelina is such an interesting player, and she's somebody who I kind of feel like in some ways is like a Q, where that there is like a quirky side that's like going to be really fun television, and people are like, wait, is she in on it? Is she not in on it? But she's also like very smart and crafty, and I think is always trying to figure out an angle in this game. And so I'm really looking forward to having her back and watching how she tries to navigate all this.
Yeah, something that I talked about in my player preview with Angelina is that she's a very innovative player. I mean, again, look no further than the echoes of the Rice negotiation and the fact that it seemingly does stem from her attempting to do so in David versus Goliath and then crowing about it until the final day of the game. I think she is someone who is very much going to think outside the box, and that is something I think enjoyable to have in an ally. I think it depends on, whether or not that sort of adamancy, immediacy, innovation, energy is something that you want to necessarily play with too.
Yeah. And I think that Angelina as a player, I think that her wheels are always turning. She's always trying. She's going to try things, but she is going to try things, I think, that players are going to sometimes see what she's doing, but she's not necessarily straight up with what her actual motive is for why she's doing said thing. And then I think that can create a disconnect against the people who are not on the same page with her.
Yeah, I think there's also something about like her sometimes feeling like she's getting away with things when that's not the case. Of course, looking at the fake idol made for Dr. Allison in the David versus Goliath finale. Now, again, I think she is coming in with a better and craftier headspace to maybe notice a bit as to how people are perceiving things.
These are takes based off of Angelina 1.0, and we'll see what the adjustment is for Angelina 2.0.
That being said, I mean, Angelina provided so many great sound bites in my interview where like she's not falling too far from the tree here after that ladder collapse. She is somebody who is still providing these very fun, blunt, hysterical opinions about people. And so I think she can certainly, make nice, be very courteous to people's faces. But I still think she is more than happy to hold grudges or like absolutely stab people in the back if she needs to, with maybe one exception as we got into.
Yes. Who's that one exception? Christy Hoffback?
Well, and she's the best friend. But let's talk about the Mike White situation here, Rob, because again, this is Angelina negotiation extraordinaire, where I don't know if she literally did this, but tried to talk Jeff into raising the prize money because that's the amount that it will take for her to betray Mike White.
Yeah. She seemed to think that the prize money is going to be more than $1 million. I don't think it is.
I do not believe it is either. Which, you could feel a certain way about. I understand at least her assumptions of like, it's season 50. Come on, they got to do it. But at least she tried to raise it herself, if not the natural tide of things.
I really feel like with some of these established shows, like the actual prize money, I don't think there is a big incentive for the show to raise the prize money. I don't think that people are going to necessarily play much differently for $1 million, $2 million, $5 million even.
I don't know. Like, according to Angelina, she'd be willing to betray friendships over a certain amount of money. Get this woman on Beast Game season 3.
I think that is probably the majority. She's in the minority of people that would actually play differently based off of like a more significant amount of money.
I also feel like in Dalton Ross's cover story, they did pull open the cover a bit onto this season's payment structure, that I don't think they're doing appearance fees unlike a winner's award, but they are doing sort of like what happened with All-Stars, Rob. They are sort of like buffing, for lack of a better term, the payment structure that they usually do for a season.
I would, if they asked me, I would say, actually, remember in Survivor All-Stars where nobody wanted to make a move because they were going to get more money if they got to the end, where the payment structure in Survivor All-Stars was the winner only got $1 million, but second place got $250,000, and Jenna Lewis, as we're talking about here, I think it was like $175,000. So they sort of like doubled like the payments to the players who kind of like got to the end. So if you were, say, Alicia, and it was, final 7, final 8, and, people were saying like, hey, let's make a move, let's flip. It's like, well, I don't really want to like screw up my spot here.
Yeah. Well, as
final
you said,
7 was probably too late. Like, we had people like, I would say probably around the time where like Lex and Kathy were like, come on, Big Tom, like, let's go, let's do this. And he's like, hey, I'm in the top 5. I'm not going to screw this up.
Well, it's a good thing, as you mentioned, that money is sort of no object to this cast, then, because it seems like even with that, it's nice to have an extra cheddar in your pocket, but I don't think it's going to predicate them making moves or not making moves.
Well, no, I'm not saying that money is no object. I'm saying that I think that sort of like putting a lot of safety at the end of the game in terms of the prize pot, I think actually makes the players a little bit tighter. I don't think a bigger prize pot, doubling it, tripling the final prize, will make players more aggressive necessarily.
Yeah, I could very much see that point. I feel like Angelina is going to come in with a bit of like Cambodia Chaos Cass vibe to her. I forgot. Kumbaya Cass, I think. Because I think she gets into my interview right about how like there was a depth that was not shown on the screen. I don't know a stranger. I can really talk to you about anything. And I could really see her make those efforts early on to connect with people. I think the big question is, Rob, what is sort of Angelina's natural resting state in terms of social relationships? And at what point is that going to come out? Is she going to feel super comfortable in Vatu to be like, okay, now I can sort of like default back to not Angelina 1.0 necessarily, but maybe remind people of her in the certain way she's regarding interactions?
Well, just to skip ahead to some of the friends and foes of it all, this is not necessarily a great draw for her in terms of some of the players that she was most foe-ish towards.
Right. Well, I think it doesn't help that 2 of them, as Angelina claims, were in cahoots preseason saying she's quote-unquote chaotic. And that's going to be really interesting as well as we get into these tribe dynamics, is that is not sort of the only perception tagged onto one of the members of this tribe. And so it is this interesting thing where, with the Angelina and Q of it all, either they are regarded as like, okay, this twosome is just way too wild radioactive materials to handle, or it could be like, Angelina could low-key have a Q shield of like, yeah, you think I'm chaotic, but remember what this guy did?
We didn't even say who the people are on this tribe. If we want to just go ahead, and I can also we could do the slideshow, or I can bring up the graphic. Well, we want to do the slideshow first, and I'd love to also, Mike. I know you have the friends and foes chart.
Yes.
Maybe we should go through it as we're talking about Angelina and what Angelina, how she's looking at her friends and foes here.
Yeah, sure. So let me first bring up the graphic of our lovely Vatu tribe.
Yes, okay.
So
here's the Vatu tribe.
So we have from left to right, Colby Donaldson, Genevieve Mushaluk, get those binoculars out, Rob, Rizo Velovic, the aforementioned Angelina Keeley, Q Burdette, Stephenie LaGrossa Kendrick, Kyle Fraser, and Aubry Bracco. And here is the friend or foe chart.
You know what? Let's save the graph for the end. Let's just go through that. Okay, just tell us Angelina, friend or foe, and let's just go down the rest of the tribe.
All right, so I'll go sort of like in descending order of, I suppose, popularity. Genevieve and Kyle both want to work with Angelina. Genevieve says that she would give her a jacket. Kyle says that she seems like an authentic person, though he will not give her his jacket. So I guess 1 for 2 there. Mm-hmm. Then next down, we have people like Aubry and Stephenie, where Stephenie says that she wants to get to know her, basically, and wants to float out working together. And then if she refuses, then she's foe. And then Aubry said for Angelina that she called her an outright frenemy, which is like the, general mixed response. She feels like she's really crafty, which is a very fair label.
Who said that, Stephenie?
Aubry did.
Aubry, yeah.
And then obviously the other
They'll
three.
Get along. Come on.
So the other 3 are Colby, who again may or may not have been caught talking about Angelina, to certain people, but says she's a foe all the way. He does not trust her.
She's a foe.
Yep. Then we've got Q, who says that Angelina is too fake, and that also she eats the most in
Didn't
preseason.
Like that Q. And I'm a big Q guy. I'm a big Q fan. Q that was like a little out of pocket.
I mean, listen, he's well, of course we'll get into the whole Emily eats pork, drinks Coke, and writes left-handed.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever go to the like Survivor mess hall, I gotta be careful. Q's like monitoring, writing down what everybody's eating.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's given full like Dwight Goodman or Tony Perkis from Heavyweights. It's like I don't want my behaviors to be watched with me doing anything, let alone eating when I'm most susceptible. But then we also have Rizo.
I'll send Q my MyFitnessPal and he can rate how I'm doing.
And then we have Rizo, who calls her a foe chiefly because of her other connections, which I think is also something we could get into as well. Is that, granted, as Christian spoke about, maybe him and Angelina are not necessarily the strongest twosome, but her and Mike certainly are. You can look no further than the season 2 premiere of The White Lotus. Do you think there's a world where people might be like, we'll certainly talk about this with someone with Kyle, like, we don't want her to meet up with Mike and possibly cause havoc together. Let's cut her now.
I really don't look at them as the same as like Kyle and Camilla. To me,
they did play from day 1 all the way to day 39 together.
They did, but I just don't see them as like this power couple that's this unbreakable bond that's always going to be on the same page. Like I feel like in Survivor, David versus Goliath, like Angelina, and maybe in the real life they were in lockstep, but I feel like in the edit, I feel like Angelina was doing things. Mike White was a little bit like, is this a good idea? Is anybody else seeing this? So I don't necessarily look at them as that they are this dynamic duo that's always going to be in cahoots.
Yeah, I mean, certainly by comparison, I guess the question is, Angelina, I think, is a known quantity in that regard. I think the way a lot of these people are playing early is factoring in those known quantities and using that to inform their decision making. We can certainly talk about that with, the decision for someone like Jenna Lewis and Savannah to go after Suri in our last tribe preview. So it could be something like, again, we'll get into with Kyle and Camilla. It certainly pales in comparison, even though they technically went longer together than Kyle and Camilla did. But I could see it come up as some sort of piece of logic, though. I feel like Mike would have a easier time sort of understating his relationship with Angelina than maybe vice versa,
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned, the way Mike was sort of perceived in the edit on David versus Goliath was sort of him being the straight man to all of Angelina's shenanigans.
I think the issue with Mike White and Angelina is I feel like they both want to drive. I feel like Mike is going to have his people that he's going to want to work with, but Angelina is going to have bonds and people that she wants to work with. And I don't think that necessarily if they get together at some point later on in the game, that it's just going to be this cohesive unit. I don't think she wants to vote him out, but I would not be super scared that Mike and Angelina are going to get together and then they're going to run the game.
Also, I should mention here that I want to try a little bit of a different category here, Rob, for each player, because I realize, as we mentioned before, we don't know how long they're going to be in these tribes. And I did get everyone's opinion on everybody else. So I thought it'd be easy as we go through each person to also, in addition to hearing, their perceptions of their tribe members, the tribe members' perceptions of them, to also talk about who are the one or two people that they want to work with the most who are not on their tribe. And so Mike is obviously a big one of them, but also Chrissy. Chrissy is number one BFF besides Mike.
Yeah. So that makes sense. That tracks. And I'm looking forward to getting to Chrissy's interviews. That's going to be in the next tribe, but looking to see how she's feeling about Angelina.
Yeah. And also I'll do a quick rundown of the last tribes of those selections as we hadn't done them yet. So Christian was a little weird because he sort of gave rationale for everybody, but I sort of pegged Stephenie as a good one. I think Christian was very high on wanting to work with Stephenie. Sari, Aubry, of course, says he would love to link up with her and, pick back from where they left off in Game Changers. Emily loves to work with Coach. Feels like he's a genuine weirdo, just wants to hang out with him. Jenna, I have to look sort of fundamentally at the Oedipal complex alliance that she's going in with, which is the Charlie and Rizo of it all. But she also did flag wanting to work with Colby and Stephenie. Joe, he says right off the top, like he wants to work with people like Colby, Chrissy, and Stephenie because he feels that sort of like old school values within him. Ozzy, get in line, Angelina, because Ozzy also wants to work with Mike White. He was so inspired by Nacho Libre that he wants to let him
that's a
know
good
that
pull.
He's a fan. Rick said Q, partially because it's his son's favorite player, but he feels like he wants to, work with the people who are having fun. And then Savannah lit up when she said that she wanted to work with Coach. So an interesting assortment of players, and some of them might be mentioned again in this very podcast.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about Angelina?
That clip of her immediate response to being excited about Jonathan. I mean, I think a lot of people very adequately made the comparison to the infamous Kamala Harris gif of the two of them just cackling. That was me and Angelina in the jungles of Fiji.
Yeah. Remind me again, what did she say?
She said were some new era people that she was really excited about working with. I responded with, is Jonathan one of them? And then she immediately said, no. I'm not doing it justice. Check out the clip for yourself, people.
Okay. All right, Mike, let's talk about Aubry.
Let's talk about Aubry here. Because talk about an incredibly different energy, not only between seasons for Aubry, but I would say compared to so many other people, including her sandwiching her between Angelina and Colby, who both come in with this sort of boundless excited energy. Aubry is so cool as a cucumber, laid back in the pocket right now.
Cool as a cucumber, laid back in the pocket. This is hard for me to talk about because I don't want to say that Aubry doesn't seem excited, but I am wondering if Aubry just has been through such a journey with Survivor. This is me intuiting what I'm hearing from Aubry. I think Aubry loves Survivor. It was a big part of her life. I think that Aubry had FOMO to not be in Survivor 50, but I'm just not hearing in Aubry's voice that she is really chomping at the bit to be there. I feel like she's giving me a little bit here we go again.
I can understand to a certain extent. That was my read after I first talked with her. Because again, that energy was so discrepant, especially compared to Aubry, right? Who we know as kind of like this fun, quirky, excitable person. And she is coming in with, again, a little bit, she was literally just sitting back the entire time, just very calmly reasoning through some of her methods and her opinions on people. I think as I was listening back to it and really pulling apart the stuff she was saying, the more I realized that I think that sort of packaging is different than what is contained within the gift. I think that the things that she was saying, at least about how she feels, the closest to herself in terms of game approach since Wrong. I think she feels in a state of readiness that she really hasn't since the very first time she started Survivor. And I wonder if that readiness is sort of being mistaken for complacency in that tone and energy.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily complacency. And I think that what I might say about it in looking at it, and I thought about this a lot before we came on to the podcast, is that I wonder if in the past, Aubry was giving you like more of a performative, people pleasing, hey, I'm going to be who you want me to be out here. And I wonder if could it be a good thing that did she sort of put that to the side and say, I'm not going to dance for you. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do what I feel like doing. I'm going to be my version of me, and it's not necessarily going to be the Aubry that is going to do a dance for potato salad for you. But
hey, she loves that coleslaw, baby.
I'm not going to go out of my way to do every single metaphor at Tribal Council because that's what Jeff wants. I wonder if this Aubry in this season of her life is a little bit, you know what? I'm just going to do what works for me.
I also wonder if there's a little bit of trepidation as well, despite the sort of calm tone she takes on, because like I cannot state this enough to people as we are yet again flashing back to 2016. Like it was incredibly heated in those Survivor Streets when it came to the ending of Wrong. There was a lot of heat, both going Aubry's way, and I would not say coming directly from her, but certainly coming from Aubry's way. She was this rather controversial figure, I would say, and at least of what her loss represented. And then, she goes on to Game Changers, goes far, but is, rather quiet, and then goes on to Edge of Extinction, where I think a lot of people did sort of feel that she was being performative and all the big shocked reactions at Tribal Council. And so I wonder, she talked about the fact that she had to pull herself out of the fan community more so than out of the show for a number of years. I wonder if there is a little bit of like, I wonder how people are going to receive me this time.
Going back to when Aubry popped up on the Edge of Extinction, that was similar where I believe we knew that David and Kelly and Joe were going to be on that. And we thought, okay, 3 tribes. And then all of a sudden it popped up like, oh, by the way, Aubry is also on this season. She loves to do that. She loves the pop in.
She loves being
Surprise,
that last minute ad.
Yeah, she really likes that.
Yeah. So, I mean, she said that she wants to be someone's pleasant surprise out here. And she wound up being so, I think. Because again, I do really like the headspace that she's approaching this game with. And I think that she's actually in a really good position. Now we'll get into this with the friend or foe, because I think it's a little Vlachos-esque, in my opinion. Where not to say that she had
tribe mate.
Yeah, exactly. Where not to say that like she had this big massive, oh my god, you got egg all over your face, but she kind of did in Edge of Extinction. So I think people aren't necessarily feeling like, oh, here's this incredibly dangerous strategist who will cut people at a moment's notice. I think they're more so thinking like, well, Aubry's been away for a while. There are bigger strategic threats, especially in the new era, that we need to nip in the bud. Maybe not necessarily remembering what Aubry is capable of.
And in a preseason where the cast seems to not be receiving Rick Devens especially well, she's almost here as like the anti-Rick Devens. And it's interesting that they both spent time together on the Edge of Extinction back in season 38, where Rick Devens, I feel that we've heard this from a few of the other players, like he's doing too much.
Yep.
Where Aubry, I feel, is at the other end of the spectrum where she's like, I'm not doing anything.
A little bit. I think Colby is probably the most at the polar end, considering that there's a lot of people saying, I'm what Christian say, some resting murder face. Like he's just coming across as like this very stoic.
But when he talks to you, Mike, he's animated. He's ready to go.
That's very true. That's very true. But yeah, I think, Aubry sort of has this laid back presence that I think could really help her, especially early on. Just to give the friend or foe rundown here. Angelina says Aubry is a BFF. She feels like they have a lot in common. Colby says Aubry is a friend. Genevieve says Aubry is feeling. Genevieve had the probably the weirdest denominator here, determinant of I had a good breakfast sandwich this morning. So egg comes in handy in multiple ways. Kyle said Aubry is a friend that she's, quote, scary but genuine. The only person who really flags her as a foe for predictable reasons is Q, who basically says he does want to work with her, but due to their past, or maybe they're not direct past, he doesn't know if it's reciprocated. And for what it's worth, hearing from her, she does want to reciprocate it.
I thought that was pretty good for Q. I was expecting him to say, like, work with Aubry, big mistake. No, he was like, no, I like Aubry, but she may not like me. So
Yeah.
I thought that was actually pretty good for Q when we talk about Aubry.
No, I think that he, it's a topic of conversation that can easily bridge the gaps. I mean, Aubry
It's a meet cute.
I mean, maybe meet cute, not hot, because Aubry also said,
Meet
right,
Q.
that the Q is a like walking red flag, but she like wants to sort of handle him with those detonator gloves to let himself blow up. Listen, as much as she wants to relent for metaphor, she does throw a speed reference into our conversation, Rob.
Yeah, we love it.
And just to finish things off there, Rizo says that he wants to work with Aubry because he sees a like-minded strategist in her and feels like she has a lot to prove. And then sort of like we talk about maybe assumed relationships on the outside of their tribe. Stephenie's like, if I've got Cirie, then I've got Aubry, and that's great.
Okay.
And I do feel like, when we talk about the person she wants to work closest with, it's going to be Cirie. And Cirie very much feels the same way. So if they are able to make their way back to the same beach, we could see a great season 34 reunion continued.
All right, Mike, who's next?
We got to talk about Colby.
The Colbster. Yes. This was fun.
This was so much fun. This was my last interview. And I know I talked about how surprising Ozzy's interview was, but I sort of like heard throughout the 2-day process of like, oh man, just you wait until you talk to Colby. He is shot out of a cannon.
Shot out of a cannon. Yeah. One of my favorite things from Colby was when he was explaining things about Survivor to you. I really like that. At one point, he tells you about Jenna Lewis. He's like, now, Jenna, if you remember, she was from the first season of Survivor. I was like, Mike remembers, Colby.
That's the host in him, though. I think that's like, you can't get that top shot out of the guy. But like, if you're just joining us right now, Jenna was on the first season.
So, and if you recall, it's like Kyle and Camilla, they're actually very close.
I mean, the thing is, though, people didn't necessarily, care about Colby re-explaining things because they were surprised in the first place that Colby knew these things in the first place. I think that is
Colby,
one of the
people coming into season 50 was like, has Colby even watched the show?
Yeah.
And there were some times when he talks about like, now there's people I know, I won't say who it is, but I didn't see their season. I'm not going to tell you, but he did seem like he did some homework. So I say that from what you were expecting from Colby, I think this was like absolutely like the top that you could have expected from Colby.
That's the thing. And I think it's a larger microcosm, shout out Ozzy, of Colby's general attitude and how it compares to our expectations, which is he is so locked in. This is someone who I think is incredibly desperate to not rewrite his narrative necessarily, but almost bring it back full circle. Almost like Aubry. He had said, like, he feels, if he could compare himself to a previous version of himself in terms of his attitude, energy level, expectations, love of the game, it's all the way back in 2001 now with Australia. He was very upfront.
Would you say boomerang?
Exactly. Oh, Billie Eilish, watch
now,
out.
If you recall, boomerangs, we use them a lot in Australia.
Listen, I'll be Colb-splained all the time. I do not care.
I have a Australian Outback boomerang around here somewhere.
Like
a
break it memento out merchandise.
Mike, the thing about being me, now, Mike, if you remember, the thing about being me is that sometimes I go places and people like, oh, here's this piece of Survivor memorabilia.
Yeah.
You take it.
You like Survivor. You enjoy this thing.
Well, these people have these artifacts, and the closest that they have, like, it belongs in your museum.
Or exactly, like you are basically the curator of the Survivor Museum.
Yeah, here's my deck of season 1 Borneo playing cards. You should have this.
Exactly, if not for display. Well, Colby has come back around, and I think he was incredibly introspective here. He talks about the fact that to be a better person in general, you have to look back upon your previous foibles, and he does not enjoy the fact that said foibles were broadcast to millions of people. And I think, I was really happy about the fact that a lot of our attitudes towards Colby, especially at the end of Heroes versus Villains, was like, the survivor that he loved has passed him by. He does not want to play again. He clearly is not a fan of where the show is now. And he admits that he was in that space, but now he has realized how grateful he should be to be in that space in the first place.
Yes, you brought up about how he had said he couldn't go fishing in the reunion, and he said, "Now that was very astute thing that you
As
recall."
you know, Colby, in the reunion.
Yes, and yeah, he didn't want to be there, and he felt like that he couldn't be himself, and he wasn't up for the adventure, or he was like kind of boxed in. But I think that with time and perspective, I think he really came to appreciate that Survivor is going to be the adventure you make it.
And it's interesting sort of connecting him with Aubry in different ways. And I think you could speak to this as well, Rob. Like, I think Survivor players, especially those who play in quick succession, it is natural and I think healthy to take a break from like engaging with the show. I mean, you had said, right, like after All Stars, you sort of like disengaged largely until Russell came back around.
I did have a break from Survivor, but it wasn't right after All Stars. After All Stars, I moved to California and I started working with Jenna Lewis, and I was working on doing interviews with a lot of the players. So I had a break from Survivor, but it was really from season 14 to 18. Like basically in the late teens was when I had a break.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Colby had been habitually watching along from Nicaragua on, but like he's gone through a lot of stuff. Again, we talk about, all the stuff.
Mike, as you recall, there was two people and they quit.
Yeah, exactly. But he talks about, I mean, maybe he was going back to Texas to shadow Jimmy Johnson, tell him how great of a job he did.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, but I do think that, his return home does feel more than metaphoric. I think he does feel like Survivor is something that made him in more ways than one. Now, what's interesting is like, I think the similarities and differences of how we think Colby is going to play versus what he has expressed. Because when we talk about like, who are the people outside his tribe that he really wants to work with? He says Ozzy. He says Jonathan. He does mention Coach. He says that they could be the biggest bromance on this season.
Yeah, I think Colby, when we look at what does he want to do, he wants to reconnect with all of the old school players. But by old school, most of the people that are pre the 30s. I'm not sure how he felt about Rick Devens, but he didn't seem super high. He's certainly not high on the Angelina, Mike White contingent. I don't know. Oh, did he say Mike White? Because I know that, hey, like he wouldn't be against acting in The White Lotus, right?
Exactly. Listen, he's been on HBO shows before. Memorably, he was mixed on Mike White.
But he wants to get together with all of the old school players, even Suri, who he didn't get along with too great in Heroes vs. Villains. And then he was also open to some of like the disconnected new school players, right?
And then also as he walked me down the odd path of the fake schoolyard pick'em.
Yes. He's like, Mike, I prepared for every scenario. What if Probe says, okay, day one, schoolyard pick, who you got?
Again, if you do not need more evidence that Colby is in it to win it, he ran through an entire fake scenario of a schoolyard pick, including the fact that he would want to zig, like where everyone's zagging, where he's going to pick Kyle so that everyone would specifically say, why the F did he pick Kyle?
Why did Colby just pick Kyle? My mind's blown.
Now ask me, who's the woman? Listen, that's the other thing. Again, he said jump, I'll say how high. If he tells me to say things in a Probst voice, I will try my damnedest.
He's great. I'm so happy he's here.
Happy.
At first, I was like, is there anything in the tank here for Colby 4.0? But
he's a hybrid now, Rob. Like, I think he's running on a different fuel source.
You get, I don't know if he's driving a hybrid. You get the vision of what the producers were seeing. And we didn't necessarily have that from when we just got the cast list, and we didn't know what the conversations the producers were having with people. And I think that some of the people who were sort of like on the bubble picks really won the producers over with their pitch for why they should be on the show.
Yeah, from what I've heard through the grapevine, like Colby was very purposeful in, telling production how much he wanted to come back, which is great because I think Colby is a really fun character. There's a reason why people were naming their kids after him. Shout out Sherry Beetham.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they should have had her come. Can we get her on the podcast?
Listen, she could get. Maybe she should bring now adult Colby on the podcast to talk about Colby.
Yeah.
So let's run down some friends or foes here, Rob. So let's start with the friendlier side of things. So I believe that, of course, Stephenie is going to say friend. Kyle also says friend for Colby.
You get the sense that Stephenie and Colby are very close on coming in on the same page.
Which is interesting because Colby's like, I have not. Now, as you know, I have not spoken with her since Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah.
Rizo wants to work with Colby because sort of the same idea we were talking about, of like he does not feel threatened at him by all, considering the last time that he saw him. But it's a little more mixed. Aubry also wants to work with Colby, says he's a friend and he wants stability. Of course, we have the Angelina of it all. What she may or may not have heard Colby was doing behind the scenes. Genevieve also has Colby as a foe. Q wants Colby as a foe because he doesn't think he wants to take him to the end. Also, we'll talk about Q's prevailing philosophy of if you made it to the final 3 or final 2,
interesting,
you have to go at some point.
This is to Jenna Lewis, hold my beer.
Exactly. Like he's just taking it one step further. So, we'll talk about this when we shake the tribe down. I think if Colby was not on this tribe with Stephenie, it might be a little bit worse prospects. But I think if he's able to sort of have a second pair of eyes and ears to maybe help stick up for him and bring him into the fold, I think he is more well equipped from this tribe than you may think initially.
Yeah, they need each other.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they're mom and dad here on this tribe.
Yes, very true. Very true. Though, again, there are some other parents here as well.
Yeah, no, they're not the only parents, but they are the later days.
Very good way to put it.
Yes.
Hopefully they're playing until the later days of this game as well.
All right. After Colby, who's next alphabetically? Genevieve?
Let's head off to Genevieve here. Let's take off the jacket, metaphorically speaking, because she could not during our interview.
Yes. Okay. Genevieve being here, this I think is also very fun.
Yeah. I mean, she is great. She is always a really, really fun interview. I mean, especially when we tried to tap into whether or not she actually practiced fire making this time.
That's her thing she will say these things to you of like, well, I've been pre-gaming with everybody. Or have I?
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
At least she's being
I didn't think you were until you just said that, but now I don't know.
At least she's being quote unquote direct to my face when she said she might be lying to me.
Yeah. She loves that.
Well, at least she moved it up the scale, right? Much like this climbing mountain thing that her husband was playing. Like she practiced it more than she did last time.
Yes. Send Genevieve to Canadian traders, please.
Please and thank you. I would absolutely love to see it.
I'm a traitor, or am I? Am I lying? I don't know.
Well, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what her perception is compared to the one out here, because, we talked about this with some of the cast. We'll certainly get into it with the next group as well. There's a lot of really interesting assessments of Genevieve based on what she accomplished in her last season.
People are, I think, scared of Genevieve, and I understand why, but I hope that she finds her footing because she's so impressive. Yeah. Genevieve. She seems so composed and measured and smart, and she looks like she could win the challenges, and she's capable of doing so many things well. We saw her be able to turn on people that she was working with. So
yeah, shout out to Linda Little, Genevieve reference in the recent hit movie Send Help.
Yes. How she turned on Kashan.
Yeah, there's a spoiler alert. There's a moment where Linda Little, early in the movie, so don't you worry. Spoiler for the first 10 minutes of Send Help, is putting on an episode of Survivor 47, and she tells her bird, if Keyshawn goes home tonight, I swear to God. And I messaged Genevieve as soon as I got it, being like, I think you're slowly alluded to in this movie.
Yes, of course. The writer of the film really just fingers on the pulse of how invested we were in Keyshawn's story.
Do you think John Lovett was the writer of this movie?
No.
What's his pen name?
I don't think so. So, all right. So Genevieve is here and she's ready to go. And I think that she feels like, hey, if I could just get my feet settled.
Yes, exactly. I think that is going to be her biggest issue. And again, she is self-introspective enough to know that as well, because if you are looking for any and all criteria to vote people out early, it's something that Rudy infamously said in the All-Stars DVD commentary. Like, as she points out, she is one of the biggest islands at the outset of this archipelago, right, of players.
When I went to an archipelago, and let me just say, we can't talk about it, but there were more than a few bodies in the water that day. And
Exactly.
I don't know Genevieve, but I hear that Jenna Lewis has got a big mouth.
I don't know how Rudy would feel about the accusation Q made of Genevieve poisoning someone's coffee.
Now, Mike, if you recall, Jenna, that big mouth, she's on the first season of the show, and also that Rich was there, and that he was, that I didn't ask, and he didn't have to tell.
Oh my God, it's like we're having a seance right here in the middle of our tribe preview. I feel the spirit in this room right now, Rob.
Genevieve.
Back to Genevieve. Spirit in and of herself. Yeah, so I really do think that, like, if she is able to get her feet under her, if she's able to, especially, we'll talk about breaking this tribe down. Like, I think if there are people who are gunning for each other immediately, that's really good for Genevieve. I think if there is more going to be a consensus opinion about, like, who let's have a clean vote this first tribal council, who's someone that's easy to get rid of, it would be Genevieve. But, like, as she mentions, you and I have both, gotten to know Genevieve. She is a very friendly, warm, fun presence. It's just sometimes the energy that she gives off sometimes, which is a little bit more reserved, a little bit more cautious, can be presented as she puts it, standoffish.
Well, I hope not. And
yeah,
I'm just worried that she could get pulled into just the Kim vortex where even when the social game is working, people are like, I don't want her to trick me. She's getting me.
I suppose so, though I do wonder, again, depending on how many of these, like, quote-unquote threats make it further, how much Genevieve might be able to recede a bit more into the background. And, she has learned a bit, I think, about the timing of it all. Obviously, I don't think she necessarily intended to go after Saul at that point, knowing, like, and then I'll become public enemy #1 until the day I'm voted out.
And I hope this is not an unfair assessment of Genevieve's game. I actually think that she is a incredibly strong social player when she wants to. I think the same thing that might prevent her from practicing fire is, like, is she going to put that investment into building the social relationship with all the people when she doesn't really want to for every single person?
I think she will, because I think she knows that's her way out. Like, I think if she knows, okay,
because I think she's really good at it if she wants to put the effort in.
There's a reason why Keyshawn, in a moment Linda Little will remember forever, looked at her and said, Genevieve, I trusted you. Like, she is able to really just, like, get you on a certain level and be able to bring you in and make you feel like you can trust her with your life. The issue is, again, now people sort of know this about her, but I do wonder, especially if people get sucked into the game, if this is something that they can allow her to do again.
I just think that for her, it doesn't necessarily come naturally, and it comes at the cost of this social battery. And when you are diminished on Survivor, the people that it comes effortlessly to are able to. I think Suri is able to do it very effortlessly with all these different people, and that might be one of her superpowers in the game. I think for Genevieve, she can do it, but I think it's at a cost.
Genevieve is also someone who vocalized a really interesting perception of people like Tiffany and Joe. She doesn't go full Hubicki and outline, the tiers of threats. But, and we'll get into this, I think, with Tiffany, who I think people, and Charlie, who I think people most qualify in this area of, like, these are the types of people who usually win returnee seasons. I'll be intrigued to get your thoughts, particularly next time, about, like, how much will that meta come into effect more than previous seasons? Because Genevieve is using that a bit to go after specific people like Tiffany and Joe.
And I think it's changed the meta of who wins these returning player seasons from what it used to be, but I look forward to that conversation.
Well, despite the fact that Genevieve might feel like she's going to be hung out to dry, she's certainly, I think, in better standing in terms of friend or foe than she may think. So Angelina says neutral. She's giving her spy vibes. Luckily, not Russian
I like
spy
that.
vibes because, her family is Ukrainian. And yeah, maybe I think it might be the jacket. I think the jacket is ironically giving away a lot. Aubry says Genevieve is proceed with caution. Says she has Gone Girl vibes. Rob.
Whoa.
Yeah, which again, what Sari called her an English teacher. Again, Q said that she'll poison your coffee.
Wow. That's very specific.
Colby says that Genevieve is a big strategic threat, but he wants to work with her. This is something we sort of talked about last time about like there are some people that actually are seeking out more of these strategy forward players to maybe counterbalance skills that they feel like they don't necessarily have at the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle wants to work with Genevieve.
I
Says
wonder
that
if the spy vibes came from Operation Italy.
that could be it as well. She knows how to work undercover.
Like they put the spy music on. It's
No,
like,
to be
she's
fair,
like a spy.
she wasn't really working on like she was sort of the decoy, right? Like she was the one they were pushing out there. Oh, pretend you have an idol. Like she wasn't the one doing.
Yeah, she was still part of it. She was still part of like the whole Ocean's 11 type.
Yeah, I guess she
heist.
was putting on a front to the point where Teeny got very confused when she showed him the idol, and he's like, I don't know to believe whether it's fake or not. Kyle has a friend in Genevieve, says the problem is she needed a number one in her season. I feel like I can be that number one. Rizo feels the same way. He says he feels like he has a lot of vibes with Sam Phelan. I've talked about this all the time, that when I interviewed Genevieve after the 47 vote out, she'd said that one of the biggest things she would do if she came back was find a Sam Phelan type because she had a lot of fun with him. Q, the big thing is that despite the poison your coffee accusations, he wants to, I suppose, keep the coffee maker close and wants to work with her specifically because, as he claims, she's bad at public speaking.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. Q is so fun, and I can't wait to talk about him because he's looking at things that nobody else is looking at.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to base off of like his own experience with her at like an event in Milwaukee. I think that's two of them were at, which, Survivor jury, fan event in Milwaukee, really apples to apples here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that Genevieve, it seems like there are people who like genuinely do want to work with her. So I think we'll talk about this later. It depends on if the tribe becomes immediately adversarial, she can very easily, like she did last time, slip under the radar, get in good with a lot of people, and basically not stick out of getting on anyone's bad side to everyone's folly. The issue, I think, would be if it's like they go to tribal council in episode 1 and they're like, well, we don't want to make waves yet, so let's kind of go for the low tide choice here and like pick off, the hermit crab of Genevieve.
Mike, as we have been going through this for a couple of days now, and all of the would you want to work with this person, would you not want to work with them, I had a little thought exercise for a moment of if I was on Survivor 50, how many people would want to work with me? And the thing that I came up with, I feel like that there might be one or two like, yes, definitely. But I really feel like that the overwhelming majority would be like, oh, no, I don't want to work with him.
Okay, well, let's
gotta go. Sorry, Rob, you got to go early.
All right, so let's do the rundown right now. This is, I think, making up for the fact that we didn't get to do a preseason interview, but this is almost like the reverse version,
and
right?
Me, in my twisted brain, I was like with everybody, like friend. That's a friend. I know that.
You're going full Joe Hunter?
Friend. I really think, I feel like I would, like, oh, I know that person. Like, oh yeah, I could work with them. And I feel like that meanwhile, it would be like, no, he's got to go.
All right, well, let's go down the list here. Jenna Lewis.
For me?
Yeah, so what do you think these people would feel about you?
Oh wait, is this what I feel about them or what they feel about me?
Yeah, that's more interesting. You're going to go full Joe with these.
I think Jenna Lewis like only knows like 3 people. The friend, she's going to love me.
All right, how about Colby?
I think friend also.
Stephenie LaGrossa.
I think that she would probably, but I think that she'd be a little bit like, oh, I gotta watch out for him. So
yeah, I mean that was the tone that Stephenie gave off, a little bit of like, I gotta talk with them a little bit more. I think the first interesting pick here, Suri.
I feel like Suri would be saying like, no, I think that C. Christian on what Suri would say about me.
C. Christian out. How about Ozzy?
I think Ozzy would be wary about me. I think that
advantage.
Yeah, I think so.
Coach?
I feel like that coach would probably say, I think he would be a little wary. It could go either way with coach.
I think coach would say friend. He did shout you out to spoil my interview with him, as opposed to like I thought Rob would be out here, would want to see Rob out here.
Yeah.
So I think he would want to lock in with
I have
you.
a good relationship with coach, but I just feel like he might be a little concerned.
How about Aubry?
I think Aubry would want to work with me. I think so.
Yeah. I mean, you're one of the reasons perhaps why she's out there. So she has to owe you one.
Yeah.
Next T-Bird. Chrissy.
I do think Christy would want to work with me.
Angelina?
Yeah, I think so, probably. Unless she has an ally that does that now. But I think on paper, sure, I think Angelina would want to work with me.
Christian, number one
Yes.
BFF?
Yes, I think so.
Mike White.
Well, I heard what Mike White said about Charlie. I feel like he'd be like, wouldn't it be funny if Rob came back after all this time and we just voted him out?
Let's put a pin in this because I can finally clear up maybe what happened during that infamous exit interview, and I'll talk about it during the Mike White segment.
Great.
Rick Devens.
Unless Steven told him not to work with me, I think probably would be pretty good.
Yeah, I think Steven's loyal to the soil at the end of the day.
Yeah.
All right, so it seems like, pre-40, it seems like you've got a pretty good group of people. Like, really, Cerie's the only one you have.
They're going to pick on me, the pre-40 people?
So then let's get into the new era.
Yeah.
Could this be more of like a Sharky group? Jonathan?
I don't think that Jonathan has any strong feeling on me one way or another.
He has a lot of strong feelings.
Yeah, I mean, what did Boston Rob tell him?
That's true. I think
Boston Rob would tell him to, like, hey, you could trust Cesternino.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, I work with him. He's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to D.
See, I feel like that the new era people are starting to be like a little bit like, he knows everybody. He knows them.
That's the thing, because I feel like there's a lot of conversation. Like you talk with Savannah and Rizo, right? About like all these new era people are connected. You're sort of like pseudo new era from a social perspective in the number of
new era coded.
Exactly. Like the number of people that you have interact with. You're Steve Buscemi in the middle school, except you are blending in.
Fellow kids.
Yeah. And so
How you doing, fellow new era kids?
But I do feel like from D's perspective, like if I'm in D's shoes, which might be, a little interestingly fitted given the toes of it all, I think she would be like, I need people who I know and I can work with. And so I'm going to keep Rob in my circle. Mm-hmm. Emily, maybe not so much. I think Emily would be fine getting rid of you.
Yeah, I think she would be fine getting rid of me.
How about Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I feel simpatico with Charlie, but I also feel like that he's going to say like, oh, he knows everybody from the podcast. He knows people he's dangerous.
Well, let's get into one of the more interesting picks here in Q, because I don't know if you saw this, Rob. Dalton Ross asked him to write down who they feel like is the biggest snub for season 50, and you got a shout out for him.
I appreciate that. And I love Q, but I feel like that Q's going to say like, oh no, he'll have some rule about, no, he podcasts about the television show Suits, like, and those are like, so he like there'll be something that I did that tripped his QDAR.
Yeah, so you get on the mic, get off my bike. We ain't riding to the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How about Tiffany?
I do think that Tiffany, she's my winner pick. I've always spoken warmly about Tiffany.
Okay, Genevieve.
Yeah, I feel like that Genevieve, especially being disconnected, I think Genevieve is like any friend I have out there. So I feel like that maybe in the back of her mind is like, okay, let me get rid of Rob eventually. But I feel like to start off, Genevieve is not coming for me.
Yeah, I think Genevieve would be someone to be like, Rob knows who I am. Like Rob is someone that can vouch for me in these scenarios.
Somebody who thinks positively of Genevieve. Like I think, and maybe, those aren't people that are everywhere.
Joe, write in an ink, friend.
Joe's a nice guy. I mean,
Joe, you have to be part of like the 25 people that he listed as friends.
Well, although I did just get done from this, like I think all the 48 people are like, "Hey, you were kind of down on our season."
I disagree. I think Camilla would totally vibe with perhaps your opinions on 48.
Maybe.
So I think do you think Camilla would be friend or foe?
I have no idea.
That's true. You actually, maybe now that you've called her a liar multiple times in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. But even before that, in interactions with her, I'm like, maybe does she not like me? I don't know.
How about Kyle?
I think Kyle is also looking for friends out there. So I don't know if he would be gunning for me.
Now, the interesting thing about Rizo and Savannah is that they know you, but you don't know them, and you have yet to talk about their season. They have yet to sort of garner any opinions you have of them.
Yes. So I don't know. I don't know. I feel like that Savannah is leaning towards working with the old school people. I feel like Riz God might be like, oh no, he knows too much. I got to get rid of him.
Maybe, but Rizzo sort of, explained, as I just did with the Genevieve stuff, right? He wants to sort of lock in with some of the other strategists, at least for a little while. I think he likes having people to bounce ideas off of. And I think you'd be ready to I think you'd be one of the old school people that would be like most likely to listen to the stuff he has going on.
I'm just saying, I don't think I would enjoy watching these videos of hearing who doesn't want to work with me and all the reasons why they don't like me. So well, then I would not enjoy that.
Well, then you certainly shouldn't go to our Rob Has a Podcast social media accounts where we're posting all these roundups of what everyone is saying about each person.
It's interesting to watch.
Yeah. So, and also going back to circling back around to Genevieve, she did say, I think the person she wants to work closest with is Jenna, which I think could be I could see like a Genevieve, for lack of a better term, alliance going on should they match up.
I apologize to the listeners for me making it all about me for a minute, but
I think it's very fun.
I always, in my mind, with like going back to Survivor 50, I'm like, I'm the glue. I'm like the bridge between the old era and the new era. Like but then like on paper, this cast of people is not necessarily a ton of people that I am especially close with.
Yeah, I think it's more so what you represent of that glue, like you're not actually fundamentally the strongest one, but it's like, oh, there's a glue bottle around. That'll help hold something together.
Right. Like, I don't think there's one other person that's in the cast that's like probably has spoken to every other person that's on the show.
And I think that could be something that even just, again, that idea could be something that could work against someone like you. Though it sounds like from when you were doing the individual rundowns, you have a lot of friends out there, Rob, as you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's just because you're my friend doesn't mean you don't want to get rid of me.
Yeah, not in real life, though. Not in real
life. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go to Kyle.
Here. Now, let's open this up to a larger conversation, Rob, because I do want to dote a bit back on Savannah and maybe dote a bit forward on D here, because we talk about the meta. So what do you think the chances are that this group of people, this cast, would A, let a winner get to the end, and B, vote for them to win again?
I don't see it. I don't know necessarily if they will be targeted imminently. For instance, this tribe, I think they need Kyle to help win the challenges. So if I had to put a chip on which winner goes the furthest, I don't see Kyle going out pre-merge.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also think even just from like an interpersonal perspective, like Kyle is a very friendly guy. He gives very friendly vibes. And I think, granted, it's going to be tough for him to sell this game this way, considering they just saw him not only win, but like successfully undermine one of his closest allies who's also out here in the final tribal council. But the pitch he can make, right, is like, hey, listen, the reason I won is because I found my people and I locked in with them and I took them all the way to the end. Is that not a good pitch for you to work with me? Savannah, I think, could also make a very similar pitch, especially with the big unknown of her game of like, it was us three against the world, and I stuck loyal to them until Sophie turned on me at the final four. It's a selling point that I think you can make in terms of like separate the $1 million check from the actual things I did in the first 25 days.
I really do struggle though to see how Kyle gets to the end. Honestly, I feel like that I could see him. Like, I feel like he's going to be okay for a little bit, but of the three, I think that his chances to repeat, I think, are probably the lowest of the three.
I think it's weird, sort of inverse, right? Like, I think of the three, he could last the longest, but he might be one of the least likely to win again. I think he has
high floor, low ceiling for Kyle.
Yes, exactly. So I think that, Kyle, I think, is coming in, though, with at least a pretty adamant strategy about, like, how he wants to pursue things, and that he does at least try to maybe manifest something of, like, listen, I may have won, but, like, A, there's 2 other winners out here. B, Cerise played 6 times. Ozzy's played 5 times. Also, hey, Charlie could have won. Ozzy could have won. Coach could have won. These people's legacies perhaps outshine the fact. It's less what have you done for me lately and more what did they do back in the day. Now, granted, maybe this is just something he's trying to say to, like, hopefully lessen the target on his back, but it is interesting to inform who he's going to pursue, which he really wants to work with the scary players. I think he really wants to find these people that might be perceived as more threatening than him that he could try to surround himself with as much shielding as he possibly can.
Sure. Who does he want to go after?
So on his tribe, there are two people he specifically is looking at. Foe is Q. He wants to say friend, but essentially it's this idea of like, in case anything blows up, I want to stay away at a fairly good distance.
Oh, but I thought he wants to keep around the people that are going to be big shields.
Well, I think it's less so like people want to go after them as threats. I think Q is not necessarily being looked at as a threat, more so as perhaps a liability. And then Rizo, it's just this idea of this big unknown. He wonders if he's, quote, a better roam. So I do think, though,
Tough to be worse.
we'll talk about this with Rizo, though. I do think this might be a matter of like, once he actually talks with him, he'll realize that maybe those preconceived notions are out the window. But I think it's a bit of that Genevieve situation where he might be thinking like, listen, I'll work with anybody that wants to work with me at this point.
Yeah. And I feel like for Kyle, I like that he is sticking to his guns and he's not here to necessarily like play a flashy game. He knows what works for him. He knows what worked for him last time. And so he's comfortable with other players being more in the spotlight. And so he needs to, continue to do what's working for him.
So what were your takes about what he expects from his relationships with Joe and Camilla, now that the three of them are back together?
Yeah, the feelings with Joe, and I know that Joe has some mixed feelings with Kyle, but it sounds like that they really did have a bond. But I just feel like that the Kyle and Camilla relationship, like, I don't even know what's real and what's not, from like, they actually didn't really talk, or actually they did talk a lot, or they're actually like telepathic with each other and they don't need to talk.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, Kyle sort of like varied in between a couple of answers when I asked him about Camilla. He was basically like, listen, we worked really well together, but I put her in fire and who knows what's going to happen and what the perception is going to be. So like, I think he is kind of approaching things fairly cautiously. Where like, I think they'll want to work with him because of the familiarity and the very tight bonds he made with them, which is a major reason why he won. But I think there's going to be this nagging thought in the back of his head the entire time of like, are they going to pull the rug out from under you? Is revenge on their mind more than you may think?
Camilla is going to get revenge on Kyle?
That's what he's sort of assuming of like...
Stop. That's not happening.
I mean, I think certainly if he sends her to the jury again, I do not think she is stumping for him to the level that she did in 48.
They put each other into the fire. He didn't send her to the jury. Stop it. Like, this is, they love each other.
He does also say he is not going to cut Camilla for cutting Camilla's sake.
It was like if Amber was like, or Boston Rob was like, hey, Amber beat me in Survivor All-Star, so I'm coming for revenge in Winners at War.
Oh, I wish that was a Winners at War jury. I wish there was friendly competition amongst the Mariano Burkett household.
Listen, play this clip if Kyle is gunning for Camilla or Camilla is gunning for Kyle. It's not happening. Stop it with the fan fiction.
Maybe that's the reason why he wants to stay away from Q, is he doesn't want to get like the 46 virus of like, gotta turn on my number one ally.
Yes. Camilla could come for Joe. That could happen. But I bet at the end of the day, Joe's like, I love these guys. God, come on in.
Well, that's what Kyle's espousing. Kyle basically said that he feels that Joe is going to need him and Camilla because Joe is not going to be as insulated as he was in 48. I might disagree given the way that he's sort of viewed in his Sela tribe, and I think the people that want to work with Joe. But if Kyle feels that way, then I think he is more than happy. I think it seems like he's more likely to throw Joe to the wolves than Camilla in that type of scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't think he's going to target Joe.
No, I don't necessarily think so. Well, let's talk about who might target Kyle here. Let's give a quick rundown. Angelina says friend. Aubry says he's a proceed with caution. I think I believe there's no foes. I think it's the lowest is proceed with caution because I think it's just a lot of like, he seems like a good guy, but he won at the end of the day.
I bet the other players looking at him like, hey, Kyle's a good guy. He's a winner. He's not going to be here for that long. Like, just I'll use him if I can. He's a number for me. He's looking for a home, but we're not going to let him get that far.
Yeah, I think Colby would probably be like one of the lowest people on him. And I think it's more so him talking about...
Take him number one in the draft, though.
Yeah, exactly. For a shocking reason, but I think it's this idea of as he got into like why he voted for Sandra and how he sort of disparages the idea of like, well, just because a winner gets to the end means they won't vote for them in the end. He
Now,
said it's very
Mike, if
circumstantial.
you recall, Sandra won Heroes versus Villains, and I voted for her. I never thought I would, but I did.
So Kyle was a friend of Genevieve. Q said Kyle was a frenemy. Again, another mixed response. Basically, that he wants to weaponize the winners to send other people home. Rizo was the lowest on Kyle. He said that he was a foe. Again, Rizo, as we'll talk about, is really trying to take out the people who have a lot of options, at least from a purely optical perspective, because that means like you have more outs than working with me. So it's just purely due to the fact, I think, that he has two other people he's coming in with. But Stephenie wants to keep winners around, on the other hand, and calls him a friend.
Okay. All right. From Kyle, are we ready? Are we going to Q?
Let's go to Q here, Rob. Let's board the Q wagon, shall we?
Let's go. Okay. It was so fun listening to Q again, and I'm so interested to see what he has up his sleeve because it's going to be interesting. I don't know if Q's going to win, but stranger things have happened, right?
So what did you make, Rob? Q, much like Rick Devens, said, like, I gotta slow play this at the beginning. You all may not remember, but I was in control of this game for the first 16, 17 days before everything blew up. Do you think...
That's true.
It's true. I think there's also this maybe discrepant value in his head of like, but man, people love the shenanigans. Do you think he's going to be able to maintain that composure in the early days of the game again?
It's going to be hard. There's going to be so little downtime for these players. So I don't know if there will be enough downtime for Q to be able to come up with things that could potentially get him in trouble. And so I'm really just so impressed with him just overall as a person and his work ethic and everything that he's accomplished. So I'm just incredibly impressed with Q just as a person overall. He's so fun to watch. He's so funny. He's so fast. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I hope that the other players who are there are entertained by him and not sick of him. And I do think that the fast pace helps him.
Yeah, because I think that it's going to be, well, it depends, because if this is a group that goes early, we'll talk about this later, this could be another person that they're like, we got to get rid of Q. Like, just the idea of him out kicks maybe the reality of what they're facing. Because I also think that, like, Q, I think, is able to showcase some restraint in terms of, like, interpersonally engaging with someone. I think especially, like I think he could make a good first impression. I think he could surprise people if he gets enough time. I think if they go to tribal council early, then it's going to become a matter of, like, the potential of what Q could be outweighs who he actually is right now.
He's also incredibly charismatic, and I wonder in this group, I could see him taking on a leadership role.
Yes.
I think that it'll be interesting to see how him and Colby vibe, but if Colby is willing to sort of go along for the ride, like, this is Q's tribe.
Yeah, which is also very interesting because considering if he wants to be Mr. Sits on his hands for the first part of the game, those hands might be forced, essentially, of like, okay, no, you are more out in front. But also, he could lean a bit more into the angle that he had in those early days of Yanu, right? Which was a bit more of like the steady decision maker. Sans those couple of times when he's like, nope, I'm quitting the game. I lost the challenge.
Yeah. And it'll be very fun to see how he's going to do here. I also think that this tribe is pretty strong.
Yeah, but I think that, you talked about this, like, Q is even more in shape, I would argue, than he was his first season.
They can't get rid of him.
What did you make about his method of targeting, where if you have ever made it to a final tribal council, you're out of here?
I think it's a good thing to bring up later on down the road, where if you can just keep changing, and we've heard a few different Survivor players from Christian, and was it also, did Rizo talk about this also, about the idea of weaponizing the narratives? it's, you know, a
Oh,
good
Kyle had
Kyle.
Kyle had a really interesting point about how he feels like in returning seasons, you have to build a consensus around like a
Right.
narrative or theme rather than just I don't like this person.
Yeah. So I think it's a good narrative to weaponize, but you just need to make sure that you are getting rid of enough of the people that are in that category first, and then remind everybody that's what we're doing.
Well, I also think that, admittedly, there are maybe a couple times where Q even breaks his own rule. I mean, he needs Colby to remind him, for instance, that Ozzy made it to a final tribal council in his
Mhm.
first season.
Yeah. So yeah, he also was talking about the two Tysons, and that was a ride that we all went on with. You know, he's like, now, Mike, which Tyson? We're like, we're gonna bring back the the Tyson 1 or Tyson 2.
See, all I was thinking about was like
And
the different forms of
yeah,
like Tyson's hair. Of like, okay, I guess in Blood versus Water, he was different than he was in Token
yeah,
Cheese.
I thought it was like, okay, because he did come back from the edge of extinction. Is that what he means? But no, it's actually that Tony is Tyson.
Yes, which I think there are a lot of people I think who are trying to channel this Winners at War Tony, which makes sense. This was the last returning season winner. He is a two-time winner for a reason. I think a
Yeah.
lot of these people are like,
Can we ever
you
get
thought
Q and Tony on the same tribe though?
if we did, good Lord, heaven is a place on earth. Like that
Q,
just
my man, I'm not Tyson.
but like imagine Tony the Spy Shack versus Q's hide and seek. That's all I want. Like I just want a season of
Tony, you're canceled. You're Tyson now.
bring back Island of the Idols, specifically the twist for these two. Put them
Mhm.
on a beach for 39 days.
Put them
That's
on
the
the
season I
Amazing
want.
Race or something.
Oh yes, I would die. They might die actually by the end of it, considering
Yeah.
those are two very very big personalities. But yeah, I mean, again, it's so fun to have like Q talk about how much more composed he's going to be, or even like him reflecting back on his game. It's really interesting that Rizo brings up later, like, you know, Rizzo's good with ego management. He's not good with ego management with revisionist history. That Q is like, the only reason why I left is because I should have flashed
Yeah.
my idol and then they wouldn't have voted for me.
We'll get to Rizzo, but I think he just needs to worry about himself for right now. Like you got a lot of problems, Rizzo.
Well, so does Q have a problem with a couple of these people. Again, going back to the Emily Flippin eats pork, drinks Coke, and writes left-handed. 3 strikes and you're out.
Wow. So yeah, so much to unpack there on the Emily Flippin eats pork, because she can't be the only person who was eating pork.
But
What's
it's
what's
specifically
Q's
that combination.
problem with pork?
I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Q values the life of a pig more than we
Maybe.
realize. I mean, he did play pigskin back in the day.
I guess so. And I have to feel like that a lot of people do drink Coke.
I think it really is the combination. I think as he expressed to Sharon Tharp, it was like, if you're eating pork and drinking Coke, what's going on with your taste buds? You don't have taste for me. You're out of here.
Maybe Q's body is a temple and he just doesn't put no Coke, no pork.
The left-handed thing is also because she can't help that. You know,
Yeah.
that's just born upon her.
That's a little bit of getting into hate speech against the left-handed people.
Really
We shouldn't do that, Q.
Real left-handed
Big
compliment there.
Mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
You shouldn't have said that.
They'll be writing L on that parchment when he takes it in the end and gets voted out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about the people that might be handing Q that L, because we'll run down the chart. I think he is the one that has maybe garnered the most mixed to negative reception. But Angelina wants to work with him. She said that she wants to work with the people who are having fun, maybe channeling that Mike White concept. He's going to be, I don't know, putting on a fashion show during the summer solstice. Aubry, as we talked about, is mixed despite any sort of previous assumptions on the Mariah of it all.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned before, says he's a big red flag, but she wants to let him blow himself up.
Wow.
Colby is out. Too chaotic, and says pre-gamed way too hard. I think that's informed by the Stephenie answer, right? Which was the story about like Q slid into her DMs being like, are you on 50? And she just didn't, not are you 50?
No,
like,
I don't think he said that. I think she said he just slid into her DMs, was like, hey, how are you?
Yeah, like, or like, happy birthday. And she's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to respond to this, so let me plead the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Genevieve is going to be Q's best friend.
Yes.
She claims she loves chaotic men.
Yes.
And then, of course, we have Kyle, who says that, as I mentioned before, Q is a foe, wants to stay friends because he's met Q, interacted with Q, but he wants to distance himself in case anything blows up. And we talked about the
Come on, don't be a baby.
and also, of course, again, Rizzo's can't ego manage revisionist history.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we'll talk about it. Q, there's going to be a lot of Q content. I think content with a Q, however long he lasts on this tribe, because I think there's going to be a lot of talk about him. Even if he is fairly restrained, there's going to be a lot of people just like watching for anything he's going to do at any point in time.
I'm sure you could tell, but I would have loved to have played with Q.
I think you would have had a ball with Q.
I know. I think that these like big personalities, I just think that they're so fun, and just to like be around them. And this is maybe my toxic trait where I'm not sure. I just want to be around the biggest personalities.
Okay, maybe I'll go back to what I said about your real life friends, maybe not necessarily wanting to keep you on their good side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you love to be
but he's fun.
Yeah, you like to be the straight man, I think, to some of the bigger characters. Like, you really like to sort of stoke those flames and encourage their... It's actually a little bit like Charlie. Like, I think Charlie very much played that role in 46.
And I feel like that Mike White, feels similarly to a lot of these other characters, where like he's talked about this in some of his interviews of like, yeah, I want to be around the people that are the interesting personalities.
Speaking of 46, how do you feel about, especially the Tiffany of it all? That he says him and Tiff are good. He wants to take Tiffany to the end. She's who I wrote down for his like people he most wants to work with on the other tribes.
I believe it. I told you in the other podcast, I think it was, that I see them as like a Tony and Sarah, who people thought like, oh, Tony and Sarah aren't getting along because they aren't Cops R Us anymore. And in reality, they talked on the phone every single day, and they were like great friends coming into Winners at War.
Yeah, we'll get into this with the Tiffany interview. I think Tiffany has that headspace for Q the person, maybe not Q the player just yet. He has to prove himself as Q the player to her before she makes a decision one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on Q?
No, let us move on to the man, the myth, the legend, the ultra marathoner, the McLovin,
the picky eater.
The picky eater.
Who talked about him being a picky eater?
Ozzy. Yeah. Ozzy also said that he needed his parents to sign a permission slip. Jenna says he can't grow a mustache.
Yeah.
Cerise says there's never been a Rizzo she's met who's on the up and up.
I didn't realize it was 9 days after they last played that Rizzo was back.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround.
This was a quick turnaround, and I really enjoyed Rizzo in season 49, but I really feel like that, like, hey, like, what, but like, we really, like, we have it's from all time that we could bring some of these people back. We didn't have to do it all today in this one season.
So, to be fair, Rob, it's been expressed that they really want to bring a cast on who is hungry to be there. Rizzo was probably quite literally hungry, considering he lost like 20 pounds.
Not that hungry. He's a picky eater.
Well, he opened my interview by saying, I think I'm one of the more sadistic people in terms of my love for Survivor. So he's ready to get heartbroken all over again.
And he does love Survivor, and so he's really into it. But when I heard that, like they brought him back 9 days after the last season, but then I heard him talk about how passionate he is to be there. And so I know how much it means to him. So I'm happy for Rizzo.
Yeah. And I think that, he is coming in with obviously a much more set of unique circumstances than Savannah, because he is weirdly the more known quantity considering what people experience with him. Now, again, this might be a Kyle category of like, he's just trying to sort of manifest this, but he seemed to not have as much of a problem with this Riz God persona being revealed and being the only
attitude about it. But it's just the fact that he seems to me like more diminished than Savannah, who sounded like she was coming back like at full strength.
Yeah, which is odd considering that she made it one day further than him. Maybe it's also that winter glow. What did Joe say? She had winter calves, so maybe it's just this idea of like
people were clocking that she had big winter energy the way that she was like moving around.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that maybe, and it also might be Rizzo trying to steer too much the other way, right? Like, I think he might be trying to like shrink within himself, present himself as more diminutive, that people are like, what is this literal teenager doing around here? Is he missing his chaperone?
Chaperone. But he does have a lot of big ideas for what he wants to come back and do. As you mentioned, he thinks that, oh, if people just see me as like, okay, I'm this personality and that I'm here for the kids.
Yeah, I think it's this idea of like, if people just see me as, oh, I'm this big character, it'll obscure the fact that I feel like I am a big strategist. And I'm really intrigued to find out how Rizo in particular pitched his game. I think Savannah is kind of the cleaner game to pitch in terms of your resume of like, hey, I was on the bottom, but every time I was the target, I won immunity and I won a record number. It's like, okay, this makes sense as to why you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Rizo, it's got to be a little bit more like you have to lean more into the big character angle, right? You have to be like, oh my God, I was saying all these wild Gen Z words, and I had this moment where I played a fake idol and I did nothing with it. But I think he is also someone like Savannah who can at least try to couch this narrative of like, I was locked in with this group. We were left out at the merge, but I stayed true to them. I was going to play my idol on them at certain points, and we made it all the way until the final four. I think that that's something that could really help him. I also do think, as I mentioned before, like once people actually talk with Rizo, if he is able to default back into the mindset he had for most of 49, which was like, hey, I'm just like this kind of like down to earth, 26-year-old kid from Yonkers. I do think that's going to endear him, especially to some of the older players.
He's got to lead with that.
I think so. I think you could still reserve that's interesting though, right? Because like, he can lead with that, but now that the Riz God persona is out, is that something he can be more flashy with, Though he might be more tongue-in-cheek about it, right? Like, I think he talked about like the atomic blast that would come with like him, Q, and Coach on a journey. Like, I think he could be like, and the Riz God's here too. He could sort of refer to it almost ironically.
Yeah. How did the other players feel about Riz God? Are we calling him Riz God officially in this season?
I think we're going to go with Rizzo here.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think also it's really weird to call him Riz God because it's like the suffix essentially at the end of this entire honorific. It would feel, it's almost like remember when like Redditors were abbreviating fan favorite game changer Sierra Dawn Thomas? I think people should do that with the man, the myth, the legend, RIZGOD, Riz God, baby. Like, we need a bit of an abbreviation there. But to answer your question, not great, Rob. And I think it's chiefly because, again, of the assumption of what he might be. There are some people that, yes, while Savannah is giving winner energy, people are basically saying like one of them won. So let's lump the two of them together. But just to give the rundown here, Angelina says that Rizo is neutral. He's not giving out any vibe, which I think speaks to what he's trying to do in Ponderosa, which is just to like, stare straight ahead, not give off anything one way or the other. We talked about the fact that him and Savannah apparently are like socially distanced from one another. Aubry says Rizo is a friend. She wants to work with the 49ers in general because everyone's coming for them. And so it's like, I'll accept you. Come to mama. Don't worry. I'll be the one to take care of you while everyone's coming after you. Colby says Rizzo's a foe. Maybe having flashbacks of the Rizzle hands of it all. Genevieve is mixed on Rizo. She doesn't know if he's going to fall into the bucket of chaotic men that she loves to slosh around in. But she says she loves chaotic men who I find fascinating in a clinical way.
Okay.
Kyle does not want to work with Rizo. We talked about the better Rome comment. And then Q is one of these people who doesn't want to work with Rizo just because of the fact that one of these 49ers won. I do wonder the moment that they're on the same tribe, he's like, okay, you didn't win. You're less threatening to me. And then Stephenie, very neutral, just wants to get to know him more.
Yeah. But I feel like Q is going to look at him like a Charlie also.
I could see it to a certain extent, but I feel like Q now is looking out for those Charlie types. Like, I think maybe part of it was I didn't see Charlie coming. Like, his argument, right, was like, I was complacent on that day. I wasn't observing what was going on. I think he's going to try to be hyper vigilant this time. And so he might want to pick up on those people and be like, I could use them until I can use them no more. So it could be something where like he feels like he could, because that's the other thing is, I wonder how many people are going to approach Rizo and Savannah the way Aubry is, as like these loose pieces rather than this threatening duo that needs to be taken out.
Yeah. Rizgod wants to work with Chrissy Hoffbeck. That's his number one person.
Which is interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of comparisons, of course, between Rizo and Ryan Ulrich. I think in terms of look, perhaps in terms of garb, he's wearing the red polo, not a red turtleneck, but very close.
That relationship ended so great, though.
Wait till you hear my interview with Chrissy for more about that, Rob.
Okay.
But he also wants to work with Joe. Actually, he had a really nice story, right, about obviously his brother being autistic, and he talked with me in my 49 interview about how much he really loved that Joe and Eva moment. But he also spoke about the fact that, as we talked about last time, like, Joe is a guy that will be in like fatally loyal to you to his game's detriment. Sign me up. I want to work alongside you.
Makes sense.
And that could be fun as well. I think a Joe Rizzo pairing would be Riz Joe would be very unique.
It would be unique. I don't know if it's necessarily one of my dream pairings that I need to see in Survivor 50.
So what do you think? I guess we'll lump Savannah in again as well. I know we sort of went back with the winner of it all, but like, given the fact that there are so many opinions about them, like, do you think they'll be able to get over these hurdles early, or do you think these could be for the ultra marathoner, ironically enough, or could these be like easy methods to just dispose of the 49ers as early as possible?
I'm more bullish on Savannah. I think that Savannah, might be able to endear herself better to like the group that she's in, where I just don't necessarily know who is in a position of power here, who's embracing him.
I mean, I could see something where it's like Savannah, I think, is in more danger early on, but I think maybe has the better chance of going the distance. We'll get into this. I really could see a world where like the Rizzos and Genevieve sort of fade into the background as these bigger forces come after one another. That's the best case
scenario for Rizgod, where, okay, Q is coming for somebody else here in this group, and Colby is gunning for Q, and there's like, they're all like firing at each other, and then he can sort of like get under the radar.
Which is sort of what happened in 49 to a certain extent, right? Where like all of a sudden people sort of nonsensically started gunning for one another within this majority alliance. And there were some times that, yes, he was creating the fireworks, but he kind of just had to like step back and admire the explosions.
Yep.
All right.
All right, Mike. Let's talk about Stephenie LaGrossa.
Last but certainly not least, Stephenie is back, and I think she's another one of these old school interviews that I was very pleasantly surprised by. I think, it's interesting because I think unlike an Aubry, unlike a Colby, she has been back on reality TV, and it was really interesting to get her opinion as to like how particularly playing Traders, or at least the way she approached Traders, is going to inform the way she approaches Survivor.
Yes. Why don't you highlight that for the listeners?
It's this idea that she kind of learned to be a quote unquote quieter Stephenie. That I think because Traders is a game that, as we've seen very recently, is about hopefully being observant and trying to more so take in the behaviors around you, especially like we have to remember too, Stephenie and Sari played in the first American version of the Traders. Like there was no previous blueprint as to, pay attention to this.
You need to remember. So Stephenie and Sari, they were on season 1 of Traders.
I would pay for a YouTube channel of Colby just reminding me of things. I would love to actually just set up an app for my ADHD self of like, reminder, you have a roast in the oven. Get it out, as you know, in 30 minutes.
Hey, you have to remember, take it out.
Colby, if you need to find your way back into the entertainment industry, maybe that's a way to do it. But it's interesting because that's not really the Stephenie type, right? Now, granted, maybe a little bit of that was sort of like a forced perspective given everything that happened in Palau, where she kind of had to be on the defensive every single vote because she was going. And then it sort of flipped to her detriment in Guatemala, where she was the one that was calling the shots. But I think she is someone who feels like she can kind of ride the middle here by being like, I'm kind of drafting off of my popularity and the perception behind me as like this old school challenge beast loyal player. And then also I'm going to be able to like remain a little bit under the radar, just be good in challenges, contribute to camp, and not need to pop until I need to, which again, does not feel like the Stephenie of yore.
Yeah. And we'll see if she can pull that off, because that's not really her game in Palau or Guatemala.
Yeah, and so that
heroes versus villains.
And that's the interesting thing too, right? Because Sari, who knows her most intimately recently, said like Stephenie needs constant reassurance. She's jumping around all the time. We get into some of these perceptions from her tribe members. I forget who said like that they felt like Stephenie like is someone who can sort of fly off the handle, is emotional.
But Sari's read of Stephenie sounds like a read of her from being on the Traders, where I totally can understand why you might need constant reassurance on the Traders. Stephenie and Suri in Heroes vs. Villains, they were not working together. They were not allies. And that Stephenie was only there for what, 4 days?
Yeah, basically.
So I don't know if Suri has
but they did. I mean, despite not having a game relationship, she says they did spend a good amount of time together in that pre-jury trip.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Now, I have a question for you, Mike.
Please.
I thought I heard Stephenie LaGrossa had one mission in Survivor 50, and I could have sworn I heard Stephenie LaGrossa was guns blazing for Suri Field. It's payback time, baby. And Stephenie was going to be going hard for Suri.
That's what I had heard about 3 weeks before I released my interview, in which she said, people are going to gun for Suri before me, so I'll keep her around as long as I can.
She seemed like she wants to work with Suri.
Not only that, she wants to work with Aubry because Aubry is assumingly working with Suri. Tricky, Rob.
We must have got like some bad intel.
This feels like that scene in Labyrinth where one Stephenie's telling the truth and one Stephenie's lying to us. LaGrossa's lying and Kendrick's telling the truth.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was weird. Like that was, people were saying that Stephenie was gunning for. I could have sworn I read that.
Now, let me read back specifically the quote about Suri, just to not put words in her mouth. She says, I think Suri is going to be a big friend of mine out here. I think Suri is going to have a way bigger target than I have on me. She won Trader. She's already played 4 times. She's proven to be brutal in the game, like brutal in a good way, like a huge threat. If that girl goes far, she's winning the whole thing. They're not fools. And she played Big Brother with her son and kept it a secret. She's done way more TV than me. So she's going to be a huge threat out here, and she's going to be a great shield for me. So she's going to be a very good friend of mine.
Yeah. So
I don't know if it's like a two things can be true at once. I do think she sounds more adamant in that Dalton Ross clip about like, and I'm getting revenge on Suri. Here it's more so like, no, I want to use Suri.
Yeah. But either way, she did not come to season 50 to settle the score with Suri.
Definitely not. What did you make of her saying that she patented the Trader's Angel strategy first?
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe her and Sandra can debate that.
Yeah, I think there'd be many things that the two of them would debate. But yeah, I mean, I could see a world where like the cameras aren't on them and they're like, yeah, so like low key, like I know you're a traitor, so just like keep me safe and I'll do the likewise for you.
I don't think that people have that kind of conversation.
Going back to the Survivor of it all, though, maybe this is a thing that people espouse at the round table, though, Rob. Let's talk about...
Like, I think that conversation kind of goes like from like a Colton and Lisa.
Exactly. From, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're barking up the wrong tree.
So let's talk about truth and honor here, Rob, because I think there's been a lot of labels like, oh, these old school players are going to come in and they're only going to play one way, full tilt. They're going to be able to just stay loyal to one another. Does seem like, of the people I talked with, Stephenie is like the one that is most in that category. And she acknowledges like, but I know I have to make moves to win. But she did outright say that she wants to play in an honorable and truthful way for her family. I talked last time about how I felt, given the magnanimity of season 50, that people will want to vote for someone with that killer instinct. So do you think that type of game would win in this type of season?
I think it's hard to say. It's just going to be so fast, and I don't know if people are going to be throwing their close allies under the bus for just because, oh, Colby, I'm not going to be able to beat him at the end, so I had to take him out. I don't think it's necessarily going to be that game for the old schoolers.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily swinging in the entire opposite direction of like, let's cut everybody at any chance. Because I also think you could only play to a certain extent of who you are.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that's who Stephenie is.
And Mike, in these returning player seasons, the idea of cutting people that you had a pre-existing relationship with. I think that is a harder pill to swallow for these players who are returnees than for people who are
Yeah,
one-time
just ask
players.
Angelina, who's asking for $5 million to cut Mike White.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's run down, speaking of Angelina, some of the others' opinions on Stephenie. Angelina Foe associates her with Colby and the negative opinions of them. Aubry says Stephenie is a friend to a point. Colby, of course, locked in with Stephenie. We'll get into that in a little bit. Genevieve also says friend for Stephenie. Kyle says friend for Stephenie. Q says foe for Stephenie. And this is what I got into it before, where he feels like she's going to rub people the wrong way and put a target on her back. And ironically enough, he doesn't want to associate with that, much like what people are saying about him. And then finally, Rizo wants to work with Stephenie. It's because then Rizzo's taking on a bit of like a Mike White Christian-esque storyteller role, being like, Aubry, I think she has a lot to prove. I think Stephenie has a lot to prove. And I think he wants to work with those people.
Yeah. I felt like from Rizo, he's talking about them as if this is Stephenie from 20 years ago. I don't think he is factoring in, and maybe this is because he's coming in and he is the true fan and not necessarily the person who has gotten to meet any of these people. I don't think that he is really factoring in the evolution that all of these like old school players have had since they last played. Like Colby is not the same person he was on the last day of Survivor Heroes versus Villains, even though that's the last time Rizo saw him.
Yeah, and I think that tracks along with basically what all the fans were thinking about these people when they were first brought into the cast. And that's what Stephenie is hoping. She says that I hope people remember this, very fiery underdog who was loyal to her allies until her dying day, and less so about all the stuff that I've done in between. So that's what's going to be a very fun thing about this season as well, Rob, especially from these old schooler perceptions. And we'll get into this, I think, a lot with Coach next time as to how much are you going to steer into the curve of what people are expecting of you? Because you could be, as Aubry said, someone's pleasant surprise out there. But if your perception is like, well, look what they did on their previous seasons, they're easy to work with or they're easy to take to the end, maybe you kind of need to further that narrative a little bit.
All right, Mike, are you ready to start to put the puzzle together?
Yeah, let me flash up this graphic at first. We talked through it all, but you can sort of get a visual now as to who's standing in the best position. So as we talked before, I would say probably the most positive across the board is Aubry, where Q is the only person who doesn't want to work with her, and it's only because he assumes that she doesn't want to work with him. Second is probably Kyle. Kyle doesn't have any outright foes. It's just more so like, I can work with Kyle to a certain extent. But Stephenie, also pretty good, only has a couple of foes. Q, obviously the most. Half the tribe feels like he is a foe. And despite all this talk about Genevieve feeling very disconnected, only one person outright says that she's a foe.
I like that.
Yeah, so an interesting group. Interesting to see, I think, Colby being perceived as a bigger foe more than Stephenie, especially because I think a lot of people see them as a duo, and they certainly will in this tribe because they're sharing the same beach.
Okay. All right. So once again, we've got the big board to take a look at. And so let's go ahead and put that full frame and we can talk it through in terms of what we're looking at here. All right, Mike, where do you want to start? What's the obvious duo? Is it Colby and Stephenie?
That is the most obvious duo. I think not only that, I would argue this is one of the most obvious duos on a tribe in this season. I think given where the two of them left things off together and given like who they are as people, I think they are going to be in lockstep from the very beginning. It's just going to be a very quick conversation of like, we good, let's move forward. The narrative that I'm trying to create here, Rob, is that I can see two warring factions.
Yeah.
Colby versus Angelina.
Okay. So who's with Angelina?
It's a great question. I think Angelina would want Q on her side. Now, of course, Q has some choice words about the way he feels about Angelina, but maybe if he's figuring out the way he's being looked at in this tribe, beggars might necessarily be choosers. And
but didn't you say he thinks she's fake?
Yeah, but he doesn't like Colby and he doesn't like Stephenie either, you know?
Mm.
And I think especially if he gets wind that Colby does not like him, it could be something of the enemy of my enemy.
Okay. All right.
I also could see Aubry. Aubry's interesting because I think Colby wants to work with Aubry. I think Aubry wants to work with Colby. But I think Aubry could also want to work with Angelina and Q as well. And Angelina really wants to connect with Aubry.
Okay. So where's your gut?
My gut would be that she would be presented as the swing vote. But I could see her go with...
All right, let's leave her in the middle for now.
I mean, that's the tough thing is that these other three people...
She'll go where the numbers are.
Yeah, these three people are such free agents. I think Genevieve would probably go with Q and Angelina. She loves her chaotic men. I think Rizo would be with Colby and Stephenie. Rizo said, we spoke about this with Savannah, that he is coming in with the assumption that the new era people are too connected, and so he wants to work with these old schoolers.
Okay, so then Kyle, he wants to go with Genevieve, right?
I think Kyle wants to work with Genevieve.
But he doesn't like Q.
Kyle wants to work with Q. He wants to stay a distance from Q. He likes Q as a person. He's afraid of him as a player.
And so if that's the case, does Aubry then come over here? How did Aubry feel about Kyle?
Aubry, I think, felt... Let's take a look here. I think she was mixed on Kyle. Proceed with caution, she said.
Yeah. Well, this is starting to feel like heroes versus villains, but it's sub in Rizgod for Tom Westman.
Oh, there are a natural 1-for-1 trade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel like you have people like Kyle and Aubry who I think are floaters. Like, I think especially Aubry, if she feels like working with Q and Angelina is too much, could easily jump over to the other side. But this is where I see at least the initial factions.
Okay.
And so this is interesting because the people that we think independently on paper are slated to be early outs, Kyle, Genevieve, Rizo. Again, this is a scenario where if we have people going to war immediately, they can easily fall into rank. I think the other scenario we could present, though, kind of like what we did last time, multiple Earths here, is more of the consensus. Okay, listen, Angelina, I know that I heard what you said about me in the pregame. Let's let bygones be bygones. We have to get rid of one of these dangerous independent people early on.
Who's saying that to Angelina?
I think Colby could say that to Angelina. Colby said even like... hey, I could get along with Angelina. I just don't trust her.
But she seemed very out on Colby and Stephenie. I can't imagine she's working with them on the first vote.
This is her new self-aware queen, though. She feels like she has to make nice in order to make war later on. She might be able to do it.
But then what's the common cause that unites Angelina with Colby and Stephenie, and Colby and Stephenie don't like Angelina?
Could be Q. I could see
Angelina like Q, though?
Angelina likes Q, but I could see Angelina, especially if she feels like she might be in danger, be like, bye, Q.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, he is being described as the Terminator. Are they going to vote him off first out of this tribe?
I mean, if they feel like they are playing with the big guns, again, this comes back to the meta, Rob, of if they feel like they have to take big swings in Survivor 50 from the jump, they only have 26 days. There could be a world where they're like, you want to know the biggest swing to take? Let's get rid of Q right off the bat. I don't know. Who do you think would be in danger if there's a consensus vote here in the first couple of episodes?
I think that Rizo is certainly, I could see that world where if these other 7 people, if there was a 7-1 vote in this tribe, I could see it being against Rizo.
I, as I mentioned before, could see Genevieve. I think that Kyle would be the safest out of these free agents. I think that Genevieve could be another thing where it's like, maybe if they feel like Q would be a good shield. I don't think Genevieve is giving shield energy. That's I think is the issue. I think that Kyle is as a winner. I think Q is as a smokescreen, as a distraction. I do not think Genevieve is.
Yeah. So when you say Kyle is the safest, you feel like safest from going home?
I would say so. I just don't see a world where, as we talked about before, no one's an outright foe of Kyle on this tribe. All they said is like, I'll keep him around to a certain extent, which implies to me, we'll let him hang around for a few votes, and then we'll eventually all rally around and be like, oh, yeah, he won the game. Send him out post-haste.
Yeah. What about Aubry? Could you see a 7-1 vote against Aubry?
No. I think Aubry is...
Good for Aubry.
I think Aubry is one of the most lock-safe people in this tribe.
Oh, wow.
Oh, think about the fact that everyone basically had positive opinions on her. Not even mixed. Everyone felt good about her. And I think that if Aubry is able to keep up this chill vibe that she is showing in her interviews, like, I don't see her really popping for a reason that people are like, oh man, way too dangerous. Unless there's an issue where if they become a disaster tribe and like Aubry bungles the hell out of the puzzle and they're like, well, you lost it for us, you've got to go. But who knows with this group? Because also, like, who are the puzzle makers on this tribe? We know it ain't Rizo.
Yeah, oh yeah, Rizo hates puzzles. Genevieve, I think, was not a puzzle person, but then she did beat Rachel in a puzzle, I believe, at the final five.
Or no, final six. Yeah.
Well, Rachel won immunity at the final six. So
no, Genevieve did. Genevieve did. That's why Rachel played her idol.
Okay, you're right. Mike, now, as you recall, Genevieve won immunity at the final six. My bad. Mea culpa.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that she is one of the best like individual puzzle people. I could see Angelina wanting to step up for the puzzle.
I feel like has that.
Yeah, she was a brain for a reason. So I think she would be like the de facto puzzle maker. But yeah, I feel like so many people want to work with her that I think it opens her up for so many options that I don't see a world where they all come together and are like, oh my God, wait a minute. You're working with Aubry too? She's got her hands in way too many jars.
I could see a scenario where they go to the first challenge. You're like, all right, we need a puzzle person. Okay, Rizo, you're on the puzzle. And he's like, no. I'll be cooked if I'm on the puzzle. And they're like, come on.
Colby's like, what the hell does that mean? You're going to have to explain to me, ironically speaking, what that means.
Listen, when the rice got cooked, Jerry, she did not like it.
When a guy got cooked on my season, it did not turn out well for him.
Now that guy's washed. Okay.
So yeah, this is I don't know. What are your opinions about what's the more likely scenario here? Do you think it's going to be more of an easy consensus, or do you think we could see divisions happen immediately?
I feel like the first scenario that we talked about, where the Angelina people versus the Colby Stephenie people, is going to play out.
I think that'd be the case too. I think of all three tribes, this would be the one most likely to go hard early on. I think just given the mix of personalities, and that would be delicious to watch.
And I think the question is going to be, what does Q want? I think this is how I see it. Here's Angelina on one side, Colby and Stephenie on the other. Where is Q feeling comfortable? And I think that Q can whip the votes to whatever side he wants to go.
Wow, look, really defaulting back to the Yanu days. Q, they said it couldn't happen, but that Q wagon has been very hastily assembled.
We'll see.
Regardless, okay. I'm really excited for this group of 8 in particular. It's just a very fun group of differing personalities from all these different eras we talked about, especially their opinions of one another are very interesting as well. So we'll see how much of it manifests once
there's some conflict here. More so in the last tribe than we were talking about.
Yeah, I think especially like, with that group, yes, you still have a kind of locked in duo with Suri and Ozzy, but I think there's a little bit of like people kind of warily circling each other, with the exception of Jenna and Savannah that are like, I'm going after this person. I think they knew what they were doing with Vatu. Whether or not they go to tribal council a bunch in the pre-merge, they knew this was going to be a group that was not going to play Kumbaya Survivor early on.
All right, Mike. There you have it. We've got one more tribe to talk about. You want to give us the sneak preview?
Yeah, so we're finishing with the Green Kalo tribe. And we'll see if anyone will be getting some green from this group at the end of the day, be it $1, $2, or $5 million. So, as always, we are doing these 2 a day, 1 big podcast in audio form and 2 separate videos on the YouTube channel. And we're going in alphabetical order by first name. So tomorrow, we'll start with Charlie and Chrissy. Then we're going to have Coach and D. I went by Coach, even though his name is Benjamin. Then the third day will be Jonathan and Camilla. And then we'll bring it on home with Mike White and Tiffany Irvin. And then you and I will get together one last time, Rob, to talk through the final third of this cast.
All right, looking forward to it. Of course, if you love hearing my stories about 25 years of Survivor, you're going to love the book I wrote. It's called The Tribe and I Have Spoken, and you can pre-order at robhasabook.com, and we are working on some fun pre-order surprises as well. More on that to come soon. Mike, what else is coming up for you?
Got the interviews rolling out over on Parade as well in written form. I did a different order there. I went in chronological order. So if you want an early sneak peek of the coach interview, the Chrissy interview, the Mike White interview, even the Jonathan interview, I think at this point, feel free to go check that out. I also didn't mention this last time. I've done a couple of like ancillary interviews. Like I talked with CBS's CMO about the recent Survivor 50 challenge, the big nationwide idol hunt that's going on.
Big one going on here in North Carolina.
I was going to say, how's the hunting going, Rob?
Oh, so good.
Don't give anything away. You got to get your hands on that idol first.
I don't know what we're allowed to say, but yeah.
Going well.
It's all coming to a head soon.
There we go. Exactly. Nice neutral language, much like the way people are regarding Kyle. So check that out. I'll also talk about this during our next tribe. I have some other roundups coming up. I think of like sort of like what RHAP is doing on social media, like general roundups as to what everyone is feeling about one certain person. But of course, check out everything I'm doing at a Mike Bloom Type. And I would once again, as I always do, thank people profusely for checking all of this out. It warms my heart so much to see people, clip all this stuff out, to leave comments, to, reach out about how much they are loving, particularly all the friend and foe of it all. You all make me feel in the friend category, and that means a lot. So thank you all, and I hope you enjoy the last batch we got going for you.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to read your comments as well. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye. This is RHAP. We know reality TV.